Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the first, I have to introduce this, the first Lessons Conversation. This is a new show that I am creating following my journey with the United Nations. So just to share a little bit about that, when I worked with the United Nations in New York, I was working with the UNDP Independent Evaluation Office. I was part of the Synthesis and Lessons team. And we were focusing on learning what works, in what context, and why. So we were going beyond evaluating programs and really emphasizing on what works. So as following that, we're establishing the Lessons Conversation where we get to talk to leaders in development, people who are actually doing the work, to say what works. We're not focused on what didn't work. We want to know what worked, in what context, and why, so we can continue to replicate it. So tonight I'm joined by His Excellency Ambassador Rune Skinnebach, the head of the EU delegation to Malawi. I'm also joined by Dr. Rachel Siwande, who, if there's anybody who is in tech in the room, we all know we look up to her, the founder of the first innovation hub in Malawi, M-Hub. We're also joined by Ms. Wes Salima, who is the team leader of the Muoni Fund by Macra. And last but not least, we're joined by Mr. Ayan Konje, who is a recent graduate from the University of Malawi, kind of in the same space I was a few years ago, but already making waves, the founder of OSS Brands. Thank you so much for joining us. So today we'll get straight into the questions, and I wanted to start with you, Rachel. So as the founder of M-Hub, the first tech and innovation hub in Malawi, how important has collaborating with other stakeholders been in your mission to provide support to young entrepreneurs and tech enthusiasts while growing your impact in the innovation space of Malawi?
Thank you very much, Nthanda. Testing, I hope I can be heard. So thank you very much, Ambassador, for hosting us, and for Nthanda for bringing us all together. To your question, so as a hub, we perceive ourselves as a place where we convene a diverse range of stakeholders. We look at ourselves as a convener of innovators, entrepreneurs, tech enthusiasts, the private sector, financiers. In fact, when we say M-Hub, the M in the M-Hub is actually meeting hub. Our trust is actually called the meeting hub. So the whole essence is to facilitate collaboration. And when you look at the numbers that we've been able to achieve, training 112,000 young people in digital skills and entrepreneurship, or even making the investments in entrepreneurs of up to $2.2 million, it's not numbers that have been achieved solely by the M-Hub team alone, but we've leveraged a model where we deliver through proximal partners. By that I mean, if you look at it practically, partnering with entities like the Muzuzu eHub, the Ntha Foundation, Zuka Hub. Most of our programs have taken us to districts across the country. And these are places where we don't exist. We do not believe that we need to replicate ourselves and be present in every district and geography. That is not going to be how we scale. We have been able to achieve those numbers and continue to make impact, investing in these young entrepreneurs, training these young people in digital skills and entrepreneurship by leveraging collaboration with partners that exist far and wide. And I mean, it's a diverse range of partners. You're talking of fellow hubs, and it's great to see the number of hubs that have mushroomed over the years after we set the pace. For us, we see that as true success because you cannot be a solo player. But aside of the fellow hubs, we've also partnered with the private sector. Majority of the financing that we've managed to unlock, yes, from development partners, but also we've leveraged partnerships with banks, equity investment firms, majority, of course, from outside. We can only hope that they can be more that mushroom internally, but also including even the government. Most of our programs, like with supporting rural women entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, have been done at scale by leveraging partnership with the government, district youth officers, district agricultural youth officers have been very key to helping us to reach communities and masses. And so that's how we've seen kind of collaboration playing a role, both internally and externally. And just to finish off, to say that as a hub, we have a number of values that we live by. And collaboration is one of those that tops the list. And so we live the ethos of collaboration, both internally, but also externally. And one of the ways we've done that is within the bracket of entrepreneurs that we support, who we segment into 4 brackets. We have those that are at ideation stage, at startup phase, pre-scale, and post-revenue entrepreneurs. So these are entrepreneurs that have a product or a service that's on the market, and they're making a profit. We facilitated intentionally collaboration within the verticals, but also horizontally. To the extent that, for example, currently we have a program where we're training young women entrepreneurs. It's called the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. Majority are in the vocational skills space. So we've got a lot of young women painters, plumbers, but they're being mentored by entrepreneurs that are within the post-revenue phase, supporting them at ideation stage, which I call sending the ladder down, so that these young entrepreneurs can also find the way to the top.
Thank you, very insightful, and I think I didn't introduce the topic. The topic is the power of collaboration for innovation and creativity. And there's a lot of key players here. I think the thing we keep advocating for is let's not go alone, let's all go together. And I love how you say you don't have to be there, you can work with partners that are there. That's the way that we can scale. And speaking of creativity and collaboration, I want to come to you, Mr. Ian Konje. You are the founder of Oasis brand. Is there an Oasis hub now? Are we building that? Is there a co-working space?
It's coming.
Definitely. Okay, so it's under the works. Okay, so I want to know, you're working in the space of business development solutions for entrepreneurs. Can you share some insights on how you focus on creative collaboration? Because I know you're strong on the creativity within your company and with your external partners.
Yes. You know, when we started Oasis Brands, a lot of people ask me why Oasis? And I know when you hear the word oasis, what comes in mind is a desert, and you have water, and you have plants. And so we realized that in business and entrepreneurship, you have struggles, you have problems. And there needs to be a place where, you know, you can get the life that you need, hence the oasis. And so what we're trying to do at the Oasis is foster an environment of creativity and innovation where creative partners and innovative partners can come together, collaborate, and not only foster solutions, but scalable and commercialized solutions. Now, to your question, how do we handle creativity and innovation? I think one of the things that we look at, and I know that one of the phrases that people speak about is thinking outside the box. But for us, thinking outside the box is taking a multi-dimensional view of the problems and the challenges that we solve. And so the first view that we take is multi-sectoral. So we're looking at all the sectors that Malawi interfaces in. So from agriculture, health, industrialization, retail, commerce. We're looking at what are the problems in all these industries. And then on the other side, we're then looking at multi-service. And so from emerging technologies to creative arts, all the way to marketing, to software, to development, what are the various service points or points of value that Malawi has to offer? And lastly, we are looking at multi-structural. So what various forms of influence exists? So from governments to public sector to entrepreneurs, in as far as individuals. Now, when you lay down that multi-dimensional view, what you have are now points in which if there's a problem in tourism, then you know that I can speak to an agency of government. I can then collaborate that person with a certain individual who's an artist, and I can tap that and plug that into a software engineer. Now, when you have that approach, you end up having a solution that the tourism agency wouldn't have thought about, software engineer wouldn't have thought about, because you've been able to bring all those things into one place. And that's what we're trying to build. So apart from us being able to look at all that in Malawi, we're then trying to see how we can then take that at an African level. Because you know the statistics, Africa has the largest, one of the largest youth populations in the world. And not only is Africa looking at Africa for solutions, but the rest of the world is looking at Africa as well. So I believe that, I think the thing that limits us is the belief that there are limitations. So if you break down the walls and you look at all the other industries, all the other structural players, and most importantly, when they have a service points, you will be able to find solutions that are innovative and creative that you would have not even thought about. And I believe they're more efficient, more scalable, and can be commercialized much easier.
I love that. Not only Africa is looking at Africa, but the whole world has eyes on Africa right now. When you look at the West, I think one of the things that most of my friends would tell me is everything has kind of been done. And when you come to Africa, you can be depressed and say nothing has been done. But when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of smile and say nothing has been done. So speaking of helping Africa and bridging the divides, I want to come to Ambassador Rune. How does collaboration between governments, organizations, and communities drive innovation and creativity for developmental contexts like Malawi?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure. Well, first of all, Nthanda, thanks so much for gathering us here tonight. It's a privilege to host you, and I hope we can do more events in the future. I'm not sure I belong in this panel because I'm neither innovative nor creative, and I know the Honorable Minister of Tourism would do a much better trick here. But since I'm here, I don't want to be a party pooper, but I want to put in some element of realism, because what we are doing here is, of course, we are working with Malawi. We have a certain amount of money. We have 352 million euros for the period 21 to 24. And with that, we have to do the best possible, aligned with government policies, of course. And then we have to react to the real situation. The context is one where we have 30% going into a food crisis, 70% living under the poverty level, who have no resources for being innovative or creative. They need to think of what to eat tomorrow. And this is a reality too. So when we're here in this beautiful garden tonight with all these beautiful people, we must bear that in mind, that there is a framework that must be set in order to allow for creativity and innovation. And that's where we are working. We are trying, we have entrepreneur programs with the UNDP, under Sanchito. We try to help creativity with the small means we have. We are bound by a series of regulations and rules that you can imagine, but we try to establish a framework which allows or optimizes the conditions for a few people to push the agenda. When we spot talented people like yourself, we say, oh, what can we do for Nthanda, and how can we help? And we have very little means, but we do have a garden, and we do, and we are happy to help, but it's not our main concern. Our main concerns are quite clear. Our main concerns is parts of the framework that we can affect, which is governance, economic and democratic. It is human development, so it requires a basis. We try to get as many through secondary education as we can. We give a few scholarships. We run TVET or start TVET programs. And of course, we do green resilient growth, where we look at mainly energy infrastructures and other elements that are fundamental for Malawi's growth. And this is a foundation on which you, as creatives and innovators, you have to build on it and you have to benefit from it. And this is what we can contribute.
Oh, thank you so much. And I love the part where you say we have to pay special focus to leaving no one behind. That there are those that are underprivileged. I mean, those of us that can afford to wear a suit and sit on a stage like this are kind of already privileged. But there's a lot of young Malawians that are creative, innovative, that could benefit from this work, and that is why we do fundamentally this work. I want to get to you, Ms. Wesi, who is representing the Muni Fund from MACRA. We would love to learn a little bit more about the Muni Fund and why MACRA established this. So you are a team leader on this. So the Muni Fund is centered on driving innovation, competitiveness, economic performance, and national development. In what context are you collaborating with key stakeholders in the industries and partners to ensure the fund is having a success?
Thank you, Ambassador, for hosting us. I'll just give you a brief background on what Muni Fund is. It is an ICT research and innovation hub that was established by MACRA. So one of MACRA's mandates is to promote development of communication services, and to promote this communication services with what's with an international accordance. So through this, they decided to
bring up this Muni Fund. So we look at providing seed funding to individuals and entrepreneurs that have anything to do with ICT research or ICT innovation. We therefore go to these individuals, request that they share with us whatever innovative ideas that they have. We try to provide funding for them, link them to markets, and also showcase what Malawi has. Because the biggest thing that we noted is we are very big importers of products and services. We need to now start exporting our products and services. So by providing these services locally, we can also drive this market internationally. So going back to your question, we collaborated with the Ministry of Local Government, Unity and Culture. So this was our target market. They gave us problems and opportunities that they had identified through the local councils, through the municipalities, and through the city councils. We then had a call of application. I believe this should have been around September to October. We must have received a message through staff people for that Muni Fund has opened, calling for applications, please apply. So once people had applied, we received over 1,000 applications. We selected the best 70 from those so that we have 2 for each council. Once we received those 70 from each council, we then re-evaluated them again, that okay, now you've been selected. What type of funding do you require to make this idea into a prototype? Now from this prototype, how can we deploy it into your council so it's usable? Now from this usable product or this usable service, how do we showcase it to the rest of Malawi, to the rest of the world, that Malawi can do these things, Malawi will do these things. And as a way of supporting that, we have recently been selected through the International Telecommunications Union to host an acceleration center. So we are one of the 17 countries that will be hosting this. So through the Muni Fund platform, we are going to use this 70 and the more to come that you see. Internationally, Malawi can do this. Bring your investments, bring your resources. Malawi can do it and Malawi will do it. Thank you.
Much for that response, Wesley. And we're talking about Malawi innovating and helping people to build more stuff. So the idea is the kwacha keeps falling. Let's be honest. Let's face the reality. We're not innovating. We're not exporting. And the work of all of us here, the ecosystem builders, is to help Malawians innovate, to start sending out stuff so then the kwacha can actually, gain some value. That's the goal here. So you all have spoken of very creative and innovative work. And I want to give you a question, each of you. I want an example of a success story. What collaborative project did you work on? Or maybe you sponsored or you empowered some people to collaborate. So I want to hear from each one of you. But before I come to you, I'll give you a moment to think. I did want to come to you, Ambassador Rune. I recently heard, while I wasn't out here, of the EU Youth Sounding Board. That is a very exciting project. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about it. I know there are 15 young leaders that have been engaged. What was the idea behind that?
Yes. No, that is probably the best innovation we have done in recent years when it comes to innovation and creativity. What we realized is that we are very locked in our ways of thinking, and we follow the guidelines, the strategies, the visions that are there, but we don't think out of the box, and we don't have very much new thinking coming into to us. But then we had a visit, I think it was in October 22, of our Commissioner for International Partnership, who has created this global youth sounding board, which she uses to inspire her. And she said, you don't have one in Malawi? I don't believe. There's so many young people, you should do something about it. And well, we know when to accept an instruction, and we proceeded. And it has been very successful, because after a long selection process where we tried to cover geography, sectors, different types of background, we ended up with a group of 15 young Malawians who each and every one are very exceptional, who are very outspoken, who have very clear ideas, and whom we try to involve in our programming. When we go on missions, when we have big conferences or meetings, we involve them and we consult them, and we try to the extent possible to take their views into account. And gradually our hope is that it will make us think a bit younger also, and act younger. It is now running for it's formally been launched this year only, and so it's relatively new, but we are very hopeful that in a year or two that people will realize here in Malawi also that the EU is changing, and become more innovative and maybe even creative.
That's amazing. I'm involving more youth so we can have youth voices at the table, which is very important. And coming back to you guys, maybe we start with Rachel. I want to know what's one of your big successful collaborative projects that whether you as an individual or MHub has worked on?
Interesting. So maybe we'll take it from one individual and one MHub. Let's start with an MHub example, first of all. So a couple of years ago, we started to make investments in post-revenue innovative entrepreneurs. And we made about 40 grants, each of up to $40,000 US. These were coupled with a lot of mentoring, coaching, training, incubation, and acceleration services. And so among the entrepreneurs that we invested in, a natural partnership kind of emerged between three. One is a guy who has put up public toilets in Area 25 to harvest human urine and produce organic fertilizer, which performs as much as chemical fertilizer, but obviously has better outcomes in terms of the environment. And so he partnered with one of our female entrepreneurs who was producing exotic teas for the export market. And then they also partnered with another female entrepreneur who is in the meat value chain. And so you could see that it's a whole ecosystem, from one who's producing fertilizer that is used in the farm of this other female entrepreneur producing exotic teas, and then all the way through to the one who is producing meat for the value chain and adding value. So it was a nice collaboration just to show how the three value chains kind of tie together regardless of the three entrepreneurs having started totally at a different scale. And perhaps a final one is a personal one. So sometime around 2018, I was quite frustrated with the load shedding because I couldn't get to be productive and do work. And I went out to read, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an energy engineer, but I went out to read, did some research and figured out, as John F. Kennedy says, do not ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So I went out and designed a thermochemical plant for generating electricity from maize cobs. Why maize cobs? Because over 5 million Malawians grow maize. 80% of the rural populace grow maize, and so it's the most common available biomass at the rural level. And so with that, there were limitations. So I had to partner with an academic unit within a university offering engineering to help me with the design, partnered with a Chinese company that is now helping to design and deploy that thermochemical plant at scale, and also partnered with the community because they needed to test it. It has to make sense. You could have a good technology, but if it is not usable and does not respond to the needs of the people, it's a white elephant. So I would say those two would emerge and bubble up to the top for me.
Amazing. An innovator empowering innovators. That's amazing. Wezi, are there any, yes, it's on. Are there any success stories from the Mooney Fund and some collaborative projects?
Yes, I think with Mooney Fund, the biggest thing that we know and that you're all going to know is that we don't like to talk the talk, we want to walk the talk. So we will be hosting a national ICT expo, possibly on the 30th of May, where we'll have all our innovators, that because they're still in the works and finalizing their innovations, where we'll have all our innovators showcasing what they've been working on and how they're going to go on from there. But then aside from that, one other thing that we noticed with innovations and with young innovators and with the youth of Malawi is the lack of digital skills and not knowing what to do with the digital skills. So we had partnered with Smart Africa, which is an alliance that looks at developing digital skills for Africa as a whole. And they have an academy, which they call the Smart Africa Digital Academy, which focuses on promoting digital skills in the African context. So aside from that as well, they have what they call a youth chapter. So I was championing the launch of this youth chapter, whereby we were going to invite different youth so that they can take part in this program our initial program with the Smart Africa Youth Chapter was to identify a number of youths through the Ministry of Youth whereby they can access the Coursera. So we have given access to about 100 individuals in Malawi that can access different digital skills that are available on Coursera. And aside from that, just this week we officially launched the Smart Africa Youth Chapter for Malawi, whereby we invited over 200 youths from different backgrounds, be it academic, be it just individuals that are now looking into what do we do now. We've finalized with our tertiary education, but what do I do with my degree? I'm always on social media. I'm always looking at, okay, let me try and do something with content creation. How do I now use the skills that are now in market compared to what we did have before? So by looking at these avenues of building digital skills and how you use these digital skills and how you can use the skills to now innovate and create for yourselves, making yourself an entrepreneur is what we're looking at. And lastly, we are in the process of developing a bill, which is what we call a digital innovation and entrepreneurship bill. So this is key with focus on what Mooney Fund is doing, whereby we want different youth and different individuals that have innovative ideas. They'll be incubated. Once they're incubated, they're going to go into partnerships with the different stakeholders involved. We will then have them showcase their ideas and look for different partners. They therefore building entrepreneurship skills, become businesses on their own and be able to stand that. You know, from having just an idea, building your innovation, you can build a business out of it and you can showcase what you can do just aside from having a degree, just aside from developing the skills. This can make money for you. Thank you.
That's amazing. Lots of exciting things happening there at Mooney Fund. Very exciting to hear. And we will be there at the ICT Expo to support you.
I'll be holding on to you.
All right. And talking about the digital divide, I think because it's my current thesis in my master's, I was on a train going from New York to Boston. And what struck me was as soon as I got on the train, every single person put out their laptop and started working or continued working. And I thought about Malawi, and I thought about our status. And I mean, imagine if you got on a bus and Malawians put out their laptops. You know, that's the dream. So I think in the digital innovation space, it can be like, oh, there are these maybe 4 people on stage, and they're doing so much in the digital space. Maybe there is nothing that I can do. But the digital divide is so vast in Malawi, in Africa. I mean, the other day I had to give somebody a direction to my house. It was a cultural shock of, I'm coming back, so resetting, and I had to be like, yeah, turn here. And I'm like, in the West, I wouldn't even have to do that. So those are opportunities that we can look into as young entrepreneurs to create solutions. Those are opportunities to get creative and create those businesses, use our creativity and innovation for Malawi. So coming back to you, Ian,
Yes.
What is your favorite collaborative project?
My favorite collaborative project. So I think last year, around September, October, we, understanding, as you said, that we need to start exporting digital services, we embarked on what we called the Oasis Africa Tour. And so we decided to step outside of our comfort zone and look at the African market. What is out there and what can we bring to that market? And so we did Rwanda, we did Kenya, we did Uganda, and lastly Egypt. And before we went to Egypt, there was the Inter-Africa Trade Fair that happens with Afrexim Bank. And one of the emerging technologies that we saw had very much potential was virtual reality. Now looking at that, we realized that tourism is one of the biggest exports that Malawi has. And how interesting would it be for people in Egypt to be able to experience Malawi from virtual reality? You know, usually people have flyers, they have pictures, they have videos, but sometimes it does not give you that immersive feeling. So we partnered with the Malawi Investment and Trade Center, MITC, which has the mandate of fostering exporting of investments, and also the Export Development Fund. And what we did is we went around Malawi and we captured the key areas of investment and interest. So we did Lake Malawi, we did the mountains, we did the cholo plantations of tea, macadamia, we did the hospitality industry, and we were able to create an experience that allowed attendance of the Inter-Africa Trade Fair to experience Malawi from Egypt. We did that as well in Rwanda, in Kenya, and Uganda. And I think what was most fascinating was we have the perception that East Africa is more advanced when it comes to technology, right? But just looking at the number of hubs that they have, looking at the number of investment that they receive, But upon our exhibition of this project, they were very interested and actually tried to call us. And I mean, we had people from the Rwanda Development Board say, look, you need to come and develop this for Rwanda. We had the African Tourism Council shine at African level as well. So I think that's one thing that does stand out the most.
Amazing. I did see your Africa tour and I thought it was audacious, first of all, and I think more Malawians need to do more of that. So congratulations on your work. And as we are wrapping up on the chat, there is one project that is actually sponsored this event partly, but also is funded by the EU. It's also a collaborative project, and we'd love just to hear a little bit about it and if there are any successes there. It's a collaboration between UNDP and the EU, the Zanchito program. I wanted to hear from you, Ambassador, a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's still early days, and maybe my colleagues from UNDP can come up with concrete successes. But what we do is that we have two branches under the program. We have one that focuses on establishing technical vocational training, and then we have one supporting young entrepreneurs, where we give them access to finance. We also try to guide them through the process of launching a program, to help them making business plan, help them establishing projects that are viable, and help them to connect also with relevant partners. I'm not aware of any successes so far, but this is part of the game in our business. We rarely come to see our own successes, so it takes time, but it is a very nice project. It's a very timely project. It's also a project that is crucial and relying on the people that you can gather on an event like this, because it's not easy to find the right people. It takes skills, it takes drive, it takes will, and you know better than most, it takes a lot of hours also to be successful in entrepreneuring. We know that this is needed. I think especially in the agri sector there are lots of initiatives going on, but it's a work in progress.
No, I love that. So much going on, so much opportunity, so much that we can do. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, Ambassador Rune Skinnebach, Dr. Rachel Swante, Wezi Salima, and Ian Konje. It was a wonderful conversation, and I hope you learned something on, we're not focusing on what doesn't work, but what works, in what context, and why. You have been with me in Nthanda Manduwi. Thank you so much.